Let's cross to London now and catch up with former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer. Thanks for joining us again, Alexander. It's been a big week for Anthony Albanese going to the NATO summit. Do you think that was a worthwhile trip for an Australian Prime Minister to make, to go to Lithuania to join a NATO summit?
I do think it's worthwhile. I remember when I was the Foreign Minister many years ago, I was the first senior Australian official to address what's called the North Atlantic Council, which is the governing body of NATO. Because in those days, I thought countries like Japan and Australia and South Korea, which are Western allies in the Indo-Pacific, need to work with the NATO countries in a globalised security environment. So for our Prime Minister now to be attending a NATO summit, I think made very good sense. It's important to consolidate those relations between the major Western allies and Australia and Japan.
And especially when you talk about the support we're giving to Ukraine, of course, along with, more importantly, the NATO nations. Of course, Anthony Albanese met with Volodymyr Zelensky and committed more to the war effort there. Here's a snippet of that.
Australia is inspired by your leadership, your resilience of the Ukrainian people, the courage that you are showing.
We still need your support.
You know, Alexander, the quid pro quo of the sort of interest you've talked about, I mean, Australia helping out with Ukraine and helping out NATO in that sort of global effort is, as you mentioned, South Korea, Japan and New Zealand getting attention from NATO, so that they're probably helping the East Asian and Pacific countries stand up to China.
Yeah, so you need to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. China has made this alliance, if you can call it that, with Russia, something that I suspect the Chinese leadership is starting to regret now. And the fact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine has enormous implications for the totality of Western security, bearing in mind the linkages between all these countries. So what has been impressive, by the way, since the Russian invasion of Ukraine is how the Western countries, the liberal democracies, the allies of America and the Americans have all come together in a huge effort to support Ukraine. If Ukraine can win the war, and basically Ukraine has so far stopped Russia achieving its ambitions, then that is going to be a huge setback for dictatorships around the world, for autocracies around the world, and a great triumph for liberal democracy. So we need to make our contribution to that effort, and we are making that contribution under both the Morrison and the Albanese governments. And we need to work with those countries because we need them, those NATO countries, particularly the US, the UK, France, to some extent Germany, to support us in the Indo-Pacific region and to support deterrence in the Indo-Pacific region. So, you know, all the pieces of the puzzle need to fit together. That's the way to look at it.
Yeah, well, as expected, you've explained very well the positives of this trip and why Anthony Albanese was right to be involved. But I want to show you the bit that really worries me. And this is the Prime Minister in Germany signing up to the Climate Club. Have a look.
Australia and Germany are now united in our deep commitment to tackling climate change, and I commended Chancellor Scholz on his development of Germany's Climate Club and was pleased to confirm that Australia will join that high-ambition initiative.
There you go, the Climate Club, Alexander. As you know, it's interested in the global climate price and it wants to penalise countries that don't have carbon prices with tariffs. Is Australia just getting involved in self-harm by joining up with this sort of a movement?
I think we have to be very careful. By the way, I think our Prime Minister is a bit out of touch with what's happening in Germany because Germany has reversed a lot of its climate change policies over the last couple of years, particularly in the wake of the ending of the gas supplies from Russia, has reopened coal-fired power stations and so on. So Germany is not quite as green and keen as it once was. But look, my overall response to these climate change issues is, what cost-benefit analysis have you ever done Have you ever explained to the public what the price of all of these measures that you want to take is going to be and what the implications will be for the public? Will it mean more borrowing, higher interest rates, more inflation, or will it just mean more taxes and higher energy prices? And the fact is, the public are not having this explained to them, and climate change is being presented to the public as some sort of, with if you like, religious fervour, which needs no explanation. You just need to do these things. Actually, they all need to be costed. We all need to understand what the implications of our measures will be, and we need to be told what the impact of measures we're taking, which are expensive, will be on the weather.
Spot on the climate. Indeed.
None of that data is ever forthcoming.
It never is. Alexander Downer, thanks so much for joining us. Alexander Downer, they're live from London. I can answer both of those things for you now. They're costing us a bomb and they're not doing anything for the climate. And more people are starting to understand that.